it really happens very rarely when you find a person who is made of the same fabric, understands other humans, their psychology and behavior in the same way as you do. And why am I saying that? Because I genuinely felt it that way with Adil. And it's such an amazing pleasure and honor to have Adil, the Senior Director of Marketing at HackerRank, on my platform. Because HackerRank, like, who doesn't know? Everybody who's planning a switch, wanting a job, giving tests, would definitely know HackerRank. And a lot of amazing things around having sessions, conferences, and a lot more is probably done by Adil's team and he himself. That's how I have seen him and known him. So big fan of yours, Adil, and it's so much amazing fun to have you on my podcast. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
So I have 4 questions for you. Usually I create 3 questions, but I have 4 questions for you, and there's no need for us to rush into anything. If this conversation gets any longer, I'm just giving both of us a disclaimer. We can break it into parts because I genuinely want to understand what's the journey of Adil, because HackerRank is something that happened to you and you're doing it currently. But I personally, from my own experience and professional journey, feel that everything leads us into what we are doing right now. So I have also created my questions around that framework. And shall I just start shooting my questions on you? Awesome.
Let's go for it.
My first question is, without getting into the age thing and making you sound old or anything, but right from the first job per se, like when you graduated and people start looking for a job and something, you were already a founder at the start of your career. And I want to understand, what was that experience of entrepreneurship like for you?
Yeah, I think it all started when I finished my undergrad, and then you want to give your cat, and then you also want to like give your snap and all these other different tests and try and get into like a B school, right? Because you want to figure out what you want to do with your life. I was someone who was never good at acads. So anyways, cracking all this was going to be a problem. But anyways, I did what I did, and finally I landed at this school called SCMHRD, Symbiosis Center for Management and HRD. Now, when I went there, I chose entrepreneurship as an elective because I thought ki apna kuch karna hai types. And one quarter, which is 3 months or one semester into the college, I was hating every single thing about the college. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I dropped out. And parallelly, in those 3 months, I was so frustrated. I started looking out for other options. And I happened to cold call the course director at EDI, Entrepreneurship Development Institute, Ahmedabad. And I told him that, look, I am at SCMHRD and I don't like it here one bit. I'm willing to quit right now and come join your institute. But I know your admission cycle is already closed and it closed quite some time back. But I'm sure like you can make an exception for someone like me. So he said that, Adil, it's practically not possible and all of that. But I kept chasing him. And I tried to remind him that, like if I'm at SCMHRD, I can be at your college. It's not a big deal. So then he said, okay, so why don't you come tomorrow morning? But I'm like, I'm not going to get permission tomorrow morning. It's a Wednesday and we're not allowed to get out of the hostel and campus ground rules. So you'll have to give me some time. So he said, well, if you really want to be here, you'll be here tomorrow. Otherwise, I can't do much because the course has already started and you're 20 days into the course already.
Right.
So I had to hustle with the warden. I try and explain my situation with him, like tell him in a very smart way that please don't report me and all of that, and I'll be back. Did all that and went to EDI. They gave me a written test and they took an interview. And immediately after that, said, hey, cool, we'd love to have you. Come join. And you have the next 72 hours to join. So go figure it out. And this is not the time where flights were as convenient in India. Think about it. This was 2004. And also as a student, now I have not told my parents about this at home because we'd already paid one semester fees to SCMHRD, right? And I'm due for the next semester and I've not discussed it with my parents. I haven't discussed it with anybody. A couple of my close friends in Simbi knew it for sure.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'll figure it out, right? So when I'm on my way, so I taken a bus all the way from Nasik because I was SCMHRD in Nasik at that time, because they had two branches, one in Nasik and one in Bombay. Now think about what are the odds that you're going to get a bus directly from Nasik to Ahmedabad. That's not happening.
Right.
So I had to take a bus from Nasik to Bombay and then come from Bombay to Ahmedabad. And I know the pain I went through, and I've reached like sweating 2 minutes profusely before my exam time. But anyways, I got back, and while I was getting back, I called my dad and I told him, you know what, I'd like to drop out from the CMHRD. And he's getting, obviously I don't know what he went through, but I love the fact that my dad has always taught me listen and listen intently and don't interrupt someone when they're speaking. So he heard me out. And then I told him that I've come to EDI and I've cracked the admission. And he's giving me admission, and the economics work out cheaper. The fees are more than 50% cheaper than a CMHRD. But that's not the point. I wanted to do business, and here I feel I'll get the right, guidance and support and interaction, because in the CMHRD everything was about jobs. So my dad very conveniently, he heard me out and he said, "Sure, go make that happen. Let me know where you want me to transfer the fees. I'll get it done." So I think that was this. Because my dad believed in me and he said, yeah, go figure. But a lot of parents would have freaked out if I would have said this, right? And this doesn't happen for the first time in life. I did this for the second time in life. Because for the first time, after my 12th, I joined BCom. First month, I hated every fiber of my being in BCom because I was not enjoying it at all. I don't get accounts, and I hate debit and credit and finance and all of that stuff. It's just not me. So it so happened that 30 days into my course, I met the principal of a BBA college somewhere. And he and I developed a really good bond. And he said, "Why don't you come see me in college tomorrow? I know you've already joined BCom and we're already 30 days into this course. But you know what? I think you should come and join me in my course, and your life will change." So I went and I met him, and I thought, my life will really change. And then I went back home and I told my parents. My mom freaked out, like she always will. But my dad, very patiently, he heard me out, and then he questioned me a lot because it was the first time I was doing it. Right. And he came to the college with me the next day. And then my principal convinced him. And what was fascinating was, see, back then, any amount of money is big money for you, right? Because you're a student and you don't know, and you're under pressure that, holy shit, my parents have already paid admission there. Now that's not going to be a refund. And they're going to have to cough up money here as well. So I was under the impression my dad's going to come and listen and then we'll figure. My dad actually carried the admission money in his pocket because he sort of knew that his son's heart was already here. And then when the Princi told him, he just gave him the money then and there. So I think there are a few people who are really responsible for your success. And I think my parents play that huge, very important role. Long story short, I finished my entrepreneurship course at EDI, came back to Belgavi, which is where I'm originally from. And then I didn't know what to do because you're still figuring things out. Now, I'm not a technical guy by background, but I wanted to figure out, I want to do something in tech. So I started working from home and I started looking at these sites. It's called freelancer.com now. Back in the day, it used to be called GAF, which is getafreelancer.com. And it was a brand in itself. So these are sites like Fiverr or Odesk back in the day, where you could go and, if you wanted a website made, you could post it on that forum and people would bid for that project. And then you award them that project, they make it and they give it to you. So what I started doing was, I was like, a good way for me to learn would be potentially, I created a profile on Get a Freelancer. That time, 2005, WordPress had just started as a CMS, a content management system. And there were frameworks like Joomla. You were in engineering back in the day, 2007 to 11. So I don't know if you remember, but Joomla was an open source content management framework. Yes. And then there was VirtueMart, which was a plugin on top of that. And e-commerce was just very nascent. Yes. So people were interested in that in US particularly. Right. So I would work nights and I would bid on all these people's projects in the US without having any skill. And I would say, I'll do it for you. So whatever somebody's saying, I'll undercut them on price and I'll say, I'll do it, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll get that project. And then I'll go to a different site like Odesk and I'll outsource it there.
What?
So if I'm getting it for like $300, I'll go and outsource it at $200 and I'll keep that $100 like 30-40% margin for myself. And
You
by
say that
virtue
you
of,
don't understand economics and stuff, right? You dropped out of BCom. Your
no,
boss
I said
already
accounting.
know.
Accounting. Even today, I hate accounting and all of that. Like, I don't enjoy it. Like, you tell me to maintain my books of business, I hate it. When you talk to me about margins, sure, that's a very different discussion.
Okay.
But anyways, what I had to do was I had to learn because I wanted to make a living in tech. It's a world that fascinated me.
Right.
And I didn't have any other starting point. Like, I couldn't go and sell in the world. One, it's too hard. Two, nobody's going to trust you. Three, you can't speak the language. I can't even pretend to know, right? But here, it just worked. And one thing led to the other. I started doing well for myself. 1.5 years, I kept doing this. I did it on the ages of a company called Leading Minds. So this I was doing on the internet. And in the day, what my same principal who hired me, I partnered up with him and I said, sir, you'll know so many people in the industry who will have needs of software and whatnot. So if you can point me in the right direction, I'll go win these projects and I'll split a percentage of the fees revenue with you. Just get me the leads because I don't know people. And he started coming up with, creating brochures, creating websites, creating these, like a hospital is opening up. Can you do a brochure about the hospital? So on and so forth.
Right.
So then I had to go learn CorelDRAW. I had to go learn Photoshop. And then I was like, instead of doing all of this, rather just find someone who can do it. So I used to play cricket when I was in college and school. And I figured this guy called Vijay.
Okay.
Vijay was working for this DTP, Desktop Processing Center, and they had their own print machinery. But I went to Vijay and said, dude, you're an amazing graphics designer. And I met him matter of factly because I had gone to print there and this guy was sitting there. I'm like, Baga, Vijay, what are you up to? And he's like, what do you mean? I run this place. I'm like, okay, I didn't know this. Why don't we do this? You design everything for me, but I can't afford to pay your design fees. I'll only pay you for print, right? And I'll pay you full markup on print. I don't want any discount, but you waive off the design fees. So then I would get customers, Vijay would design, he would print, I would bill the guy directly, and me and Sunil sir used to get our cut of sorts. So this was happening in the day. And for 1.5 years, this ran well. One fine day, I get a call. I get a call from Dr. Ranjit Nambudri. He used to be my professor at EDI for org development, organization development. And he was the only professor that I absolutely loved interacting with. Otherwise, all professors, they are boring and you're sleeping in class, you're not interesting, whatever. Dr. Ranjit, I look forward to him visiting campus. Back in the day, he was doing his PhD at IMA. Okay. And he used to come to teach us at EDI. So this guy, he finished his PhD and he got recruited by Genpact as AVP hiring. And the problem given to him was, how do you go about and solve hiring for voice talent at Genpact, which is like a KPO, BPO. So you need a lot of people who can speak good English to customers in US and UK. So they wanted to hire fresh talent out of college, but it was difficult hiring people in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Bombay, because a lot of people didn't want to work nights. So Ranjit came and said, Aadil, yours is a small town. I know you're in Belgavi. I know you're building your websites and all. You want to run this experiment. You want to try and see if you can get me people to work for me. I will pay you for that. And maybe start with one experiment and see if that goes. I just love Ranjit sir so much. Like, even this date, we are in touch on a regular basis. I told him, sir, I'll do anything for you. Tell me what to do, I'll get it done. So he explained, he said, I want freshers who are just graduating, who can speak good English. We'll take it from there. I'll send someone to interview them. I said, sir, what is the success? Like, how many people do you want to interview and how many should get hired? What does success look like? He's like, for this experiment, Aadil, if we can get 3 to 4 hires, and if you can line up about 40 people to be interviewed, I think it'll be a massive success. I'm like, sir, you know what? I'll do 100. I'll line up 100 for you. So he laughed at me and he laughed at me and said, Aadil, you don't know this. This is hard work. I know you're optimistic and you're a hustler, but I have to be cautious because a lot of people say this, they can't do it. You line up 40 for me, I'll be very happy. Sure. I'm like, sir, you trust me, I'll deliver more than 100. So anyways, long story short, he sent only one interviewer. The day he sent, I lined up 300 people. And I lined up 300 people by going to my former college, which I dropped out of, and told the principal that, you know what, I'm going to hire people from your college for this world-class MNC, which is a G spin-off. And I'm going to do it for you for free. The only thing I need from you is you're going to allow me to poster up your entire college. There's a hoarding right in front of your college that belongs to you. For the next 15 days, you let that out to me for free. Now, there are printing costs associated with this that I will figure out where to get.
Vijay,
but I'm not going to pay rent for that hoarding. Wo Vijay kar lega. And Vijay, I said, if I make money, Vijay, I'll compensate you. If I don't make money, you got to have my back for this. And I'll make it up in some other project. Like, wo udhar rahega, and I'll give it to you later. But by that time, Vijay and I were good friends. So he's like, "Haan, yaar, karne ke, dekh lenge types." So then we printed this and we put up the billboard, which is like a 20 by 40 feet billboard, and posted. So obviously there was interest. So log aa gaye, 300 log aa gaye. Genpact ne sirf ek hi interviewer bheja. That day they made 16 offers. Okay. So that means this was like a huge hit. And Ranjit sir obviously couldn't believe it. And he said, why can't you do this on a regular basis for me? So that's how my recruiting arm was born. I started my recruiting journey and called it Talent Onions and started recruiting for Genpact exclusively. Did that for a year and a half exclusively at Genpact. And then First Source came to me, Intellinet came to me, all the other BPOs, started coming to me. I started hiring for them as well. The problem was then kids in Belgavi couldn't speak English properly because they're from a tier 2 city, right? So kafi polishing karana padta tha. So then what I had is, I hired one of my professors who used to teach me in college English. I said, sir, aap inko English padhao at my cost, and we'll do these English speaking classes. So initially we did English speaking classes for free with the guarantee of a placement. Then as they started getting popular, I started charging for those English classes to get them a placement. But I never charged candidates for placement. I charged them for English speaking. So ye chalta raha. And then one thing led to the other. Somebody from Genpact quit and they went to another company and they told me, hey, Aadil, yaar, what is the stupid BPO thing you're doing? You're not making any money. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not making any money? I'm pretty happy. It's good business. He's like, no, yaar, you get paid very less here. Imagine if you make like like someone who's making between 10 and 25 lakhs, right? Then you'll get their 1 month salary or 8.33% as business. So then my mind started working, right? And like, holy shit. So at a 10%, 2.5 lakhs, that's 2,50,000 rupees for one placement. And here I was getting paid 10 to 15,000 rupees per placement.
Right.
So you see, the math is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I said, but yaar, ye kaise karte? Mere ko to aata nahi. So then he explained the business model to me and all of that. But I said, I don't have access to any of these tools. How do I get access to these tools? Because I don't have the money to invest. So he's like, you'll have to figure it out. I said, okay, I'll hustle and I'll figure it out. So I started figuring things out. And I said, one favor, yaar, get me empaneled in your company now. So he got me empaneled in this company and I started doing business with his company first. And slowly then I got into Ambuja Cements, I got into Renuka Sugars, which are manufacturing. Yeah. I landed a Whale, Deloitte, I landed JP Morgan Chase. I hired my first full-time salesperson in Bombay and she would do business development for me. So I started landing these good clients. The problem came when a lot of candidates that I would submit would turn out to be duplicates. Because a lot of the mature firms, which were, consulting majors, which were investment banking majors, they used to have a vendor management portal and you had to submit candidates there. So when submit karte the, so candidates turned out to be duplicates. So I was like, yaar, every candidate is duplicate. And I realized, because I'm looking for them on Naukri, I'm looking for them on Monster, everybody has access to these sites. So how am I adding value or differentiating? And I'm on LinkedIn since 2006. I'm on Twitter since 2008. So if you go to Talent Onions on Twitter, you'll see job postings from 2008. But Twitter wasn't as popular in India and nobody would apply.
Correct.
So phir kaise karoge? So then one day, something very interesting happened in my life, which I think changed the game for me, which was a pivotal moment. One girl that I had employed, at my firm was crying profusely. And I noticed and I went and approached her and I was like, hey, what happened? Like, why are you crying? And she said, no, it's about home. It's not about work. So one, I got a sigh of relief because it was not about work. I said, kya hua bata? And I took her for a walk. So she said, okay, my dad wants me to get married to this bozo. And, like, I have never met him. And I don't know what life is like. And I like somebody else. I like, tell that to your dad. She's like, Arey, no, they won't agree and all of that. And I'm like, ठीक है यार, बताना कौन है? Let's see who is this person that you're calling bozo. I'm curious. Naturally, I'm curious guy. So I was like, so she had calmed down. We got some chai. We walked back to office. She fired up her laptop. She turned around the laptop and she showed me. It blew my mind. It blew my mind because she logged into a matrimonial website, number one.
Oh.
And then in that matrimonial website, she showed me this guy's profile. It had his email ID, it had his phone number, it had his salary details, it had his Janam Patri, it had his, astro chart or whatever you call it, and where he had worked. Like any and every
the golden
thing
source
that you
of
could
data.
imagine.
The golden source.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine discovering this in 2008, 2009. And then I was like, dude, and I'm not taking her name just to mask her identity.
Exactly.
I said, dude, just move to the site. And I ran a search in that matrimonial website. I asked her, dude, how much did your dad pay for this subscription? Right. She said it's 3,000 rupees a year.
Oh.
And I was like, that's it? Because I was paying something like, 1,20,000 a year to Naukri for their database. Right? Obviously very different. And this matrimonial website was not supposed to be used for recruiting.
Of course.
But my antenna went out and I searched for investment banker. I searched for derivatives trader. Boom, boom, boom. Profile started showing up. So I told her, dude, here's what we're going to do. You're going to call these people. You're going to tell them that you have received a request from somebody very higher up the food chain in this investing firm who has worked with them in the past and really thinks they will add tremendous value at their current firm. And they'd like to interview you. Now, obviously, because you can't tell them I found your profile on a matrimonial website, right? That's just stupid. Yeah. So you had to create something. So I told them, this is how you're going to pitch it, saying that someone who's very high up the food chain, really liked your work ethic in the past, and they want to interview you. Are you open to having a conversation?
Old email tips.
Nobody in their right mind. Nobody in their right mind is going to say no. So people start saying yes. When we start submitting this on the vendor portal, every profile started getting accepted. We started making money. So that is when I figured that in recruiting, you'd have to go to unconventional sources to find talent where nobody is at to be successful. So that's why then that social media spirit aggravated in me. And 2007, you were in college. I don't even know you'll remember. There were social networks like Rise, RYZE, Zing, XING, which was a huge LinkedIn competitor back in the day, but popular in Eastern Europe. Ning, which is a community of social networks. Orkut used to be back in the day. Yes. So I started using these websites, using things like Yahoo Messenger, ICQ. There was something called Misho, which is an aggregate of messengers, MSN Messenger, to try and find talent in chat rooms, in different social networking websites.
Chat rooms like back in 2006, 2007.
Oh yeah,
less number maybe.
Yahoo Messenger was huge if you think about it.
Yeah.
And like you will go into different chat rooms and pretend to be someone, and then you will say that this is what I do for a living, and then people will open up. So you had 2-3 scripts that were ready. So you would just enter a chat room and you would ping someone.
When you say pretend someone else, like were you pretending to be a girl also? I'm just curious right now.
No, I never did that. I would always pretended to be like someone who is like I had a mask called Headhunter.
Oh, okay.
So then people would want to converse with you if you're a headhunter.
Right.
So a lot of my people in office had similar masks where they would pretend to be someone who can give you a job.
Okay.
And then when people see that on your ID, they immediately want to talk to you. And then you also do like a conversation starter. Although the girl trick would have worked, but somehow I was never comfortable in doing that because that would have been just easy. But I stayed away from that because I wanted to keep it very, very professional.
Thank you.
But luckily, look, long thing short, things worked out. And I discovered this tryst with social networking. And then I started speaking at conferences that we should look at LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Facebook had something called Graph Search. I think in 2011-12, they launched. So you could use that to find people in your network. So I started saying that you should use these for social networks. And that's how I started getting speaker invites at these unconferences.
Okay.
And one thing led to the other. People listened to me and they said, come and pitch in my business. So it turned out to be a great sales outlet for me. That's how I landed Dell. I started pitching business to Dell. And Dell said, hey, you know what? You're doing all these cool things. Why don't you just come and do this for a living for us? Because you know what? You'll never have access to great social media tools because you're a small fish. You'll always be in your pond and the impact you'll create is only finite. I have a phenomenal amount of tools that can give you exposure. And I have 100 people who don't know anything about social recruiting. Come and train them, come and teach them. We'll take it from there. I'm like, great, karte hain. So I shut down my firm. I went and joined Dell after 5 years of running my own business. And I was like, let's figure this out. I've never worked for anybody in my life. This will be interesting.
Yeah.
Long story short, I started working with guys like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, building partnerships with them, investing in, social recruiting tools, all of that.
Right.
LinkedIn came and said, Aadil, you're doing great work, but why limit it just to Dell? Why not do exactly what you're doing for Dell for a bunch of other companies? I'm like, what does that mean? So come join our customer success team and, evangelize what you did, do pre-sales. So I said, but I don't want to be a sales guy. I don't want a quota on my back.
Yeah.
I said, this is exactly what it is. This is a role without a quota. I'm like, sign me up. Let's do this. So then I went to LinkedIn and my job was meeting heads of talent acquisition, CHROs, working with the who's who of the India ecosystem and evangelizing LinkedIn talent solutions. Did that for 2.5 years. And then I was like, okay, I've done HR. I've done customer success. I now understand enterprise sales, which I wouldn't have earlier. I want to figure out marketing. It's something that I've never done.
Oh,
so
please.
I'm at this
I think
very...
you have already done enterprise sales. You were already doing marketing. You were just not having it as an official thing. But I think in all the story that you said, you were already doing some kind of sales and some kind of marketing. You were getting hoardings for free, dude.
No, yaar. I think, look, I'll tell you what I had figured about myself. And like you and I were talking earlier, right? Certain realizations come to you as you're part of that journey. And people think that, okay, this guy is toad at something, but you then know what is your deficiency and what is not good. So I was always a very good hunter, right? Which is new business I could crack, which is why I had those sexy accounts.
Okay.
I was such a terrible farmer, as in, once you get an account, you're supposed to milk it and grow it big.
Yes.
I had no clue. But I learned farming when I went to Dell because that's how LinkedIn farmed me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then when I went to LinkedIn, I, working with some of the best enterprise sales execs in the country, figured out, holy shit, this is how you sell.
Yes.
So there was always this thing that I need to learn. And LinkedIn was that pivotal moment where they taught me how to do this. Now I'm like, holy shit. If only I had applied all these learnings in Talent Onions, man, I would have been a very different beast altogether. But good things happen in due times in life. And that's when I figured, yaar, ab to marketing seekhni hai, kyunki ye nahi aata apne ko. And then, like nobody's going to give you a job 10 years into your journey when you don't know shit about marketing. Right. Who's going to take a punt on you? So you keep meeting people, and this one friend of mine introduced me to this other guy called Vijay, who was building his startup at Belong. And he said, Aadil, very interested you in your journey. Yaar. He said, aap aao aur kuch bhi karo. Join kar lo, kuch bhi karo. We'll craft the role for you.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the first time I met someone in life
Yes.
who said that I don't have a role, I'll craft it for you. तुम आओ हम figure out करेंगे.
How did that feel? क्योंकि ये चीजें नहीं होती, right? And like it's one of those surreal, God-blessed moments in life when somebody's like, I love you for your talent, and you just come and just do whatever you do and shine. How did that feel?
Yeah.
For the first time.
So I was like, yaar, पहली बात तो like, holy shit, this is too good to be true. And a lot of things that are too good to be true in life, you want to take them with a pinch of salt. यार पता नहीं ये कैसे होगा. But Vijay also made me work for it. He made me undergo 12 rounds of interview at Belong. Like the max number of rounds of interview I had done was 5, right? At Dell, at LinkedIn. LinkedIn made me do 6, sure.
Okay.
But this was a startup and LinkedIn was there and Belong was nowhere. Right. But I was very enthused with what they were doing. And I was so grateful to Vijay because he said that create a role wala angle. Right. And I think our wavelength also matched. Yeah. Like the day we met at 8:30 for dinner after my series of meetings and Vijay's series of meetings in Bangalore. Right. We did dinner. 8:30 was dinner. Vijay fashionably came late at 9:20. And that's okay. I was not judging him because I've always respected entrepreneurs because they have way too much going around. So, and I had been in that situation myself. I was an entrepreneur. I knew what was like that. Yes. So Vijay, I 9:20, we started having dinner. And we really enjoyed our conversation. We finished dinner at like 10:30, which was scheduled to wrap up originally at 9:30. Then I said, Vijay, all this is fascinating, but I want to see the product. So he's like, office 10 minute ka walk hai, chaloge? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We walked to the office for 15 minutes. He showed me the product. Conversation continues till 2 a.m. in the morning. And I am getting my mind blown about how this guy is thinking about, big dreams, entrepreneurship, how he wants to make his business happen and all of that. I enjoyed that conversation. I went back and I said, Vijay, I am in. But one thing we need to do is I need to meet your team. They need to like me, and I need to like them. क्योंकि आपका और मेरा तो chemistry set हो गया है. अब इनके साथ भी तो करना है ना. And he said, absolutely, that is what I'm coming to. And Aadil, this is not going to be easy. You're probably going to have to do 8 to 9 meetings in my firm with different people. So if you think 2 or 3 meetings में convert हो जाएगा, नहीं होएगा. यार startup है. आपको भी थोड़ा hustle मारना पड़ेगा. I said, actually, that works in my favor. No problem. Okay. And I have all the time in the world. Karte hain saath. Right. So I did those 11 meetings. And last week he said, you have to do one more meeting with my VC who has put money. Okay. So you have to go to Bombay and you have to meet this guy. And Vijay was testing me also. He said, I'm not going to pay you for your Bombay trip. If you want to come on board, you go and fund it yourself. मैंने कहा ठीक है यार कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है मैं करूंगा. Because the advantage for me was I was meeting a VC for the first time in life. Right. Why would I say no? I would just pay for that experience.
Of course.
And I said, karte hain. And I think also Vijay wanted to see how badly I wanted this. And I think that's very important from a hiring perspective. Yeah. You always have to see how badly the candidate wants it, because if they don't want it badly, you're making the wrong hire.
Yeah.
And he was giving me a chance to do marketing, which I had never done. So anyways, everything works out. I had a great conversation with that VC. Both of us shook hands and both of us said, dude, we have to do this. Turns out that day when I went, it was a half-an-hour meeting with this VC. It was this guy's birthday that day. I'd figured out through a couple of other people through my own research. And he'd promised that he'll be home by 9. And being in Bombay, he was in Lower Parel, and Lower Parel traffic is not easy. It would take him 45 minutes to get home.
I know.
This half-an-hour meeting turns out to 90 minutes. His son's calling him and he says, Dad, where are you? We're supposed to take you out for your birthday dinner. Right. And he's like, Beta, I'll come, but I'm meeting a very interesting guy. I just don't have the heart to say no. Trust me, even if I come late, we will go. So he gives me that 90 minutes. And that is when, you're thinking in your head, holy shit, the stars are aligning. Think about it. Someone's taken a bet on you. The VC is delaying his birthday dinner with his family.
I know.
For someone who has never met, for someone who doesn't qualify for the role, but just because Vijay vouched for you. So that means think about the belief he had in Vijay back in the day also, right?
Yeah.
Who's the CEO of Belong.
Yeah.
So then all of this happened and we shook hands, and then I came back and we said yes, and I joined Belong. And then Belong happened, and then from Belong, 4.5 brilliant years at Belong. And then one of my buddies from LinkedIn, he called me saying, Aadil, ab 0 to 1 to ho gaya na, ab kitna karoge? Now come do the 10 to 100 at HackerRank. So maine kaha, okay, let's talk about it. And he said, he introduced me to the CEO.
I mean, when I gave the introduction, I gave it... 99% sure that you and I are built out of the same fabric. But after listening to your journey, and it's very compelling to listen to you. And if I say that you have been lucky, I would be insulting you and I would be repeating the same mistake that people do with me, when they see your journey and the different companies you've worked for, and they're like, oh, tu to bahut lucky hai ki tere ko ye sab mila. I think people like you, me, or the hardworking bunch, we don't necessarily are lucky, but we work so hard for that luck to come to us. वो जो VC वाला story आप बोले, that entire episode of his birthday and he wanting to spend that time with you despite his son giving him a call. I understand Mumbai ka traffic is so pathetic, and I see you as a founder right from the time you were in your BCom to your graduation days, and the way you were indirectly convincing your parents and your princes convincing you. I mean, this is one hell of a story. You are meant to work with students and kids, because you are so inspiring in so many ways, doing things, breaking grounds right from the early 2000. I mean, uh, I, I mean, this is going to sound so weird, but there were times and moments when you reminded me of me doing crazy stuff in my life. When I made my dad put in some money at the nursery and I didn't ever go there because I was like, mujhe maza nahi aa raha. So I so get your point of that enjoy thing, because if you don't enjoy the place, the people, the work, we are those kind of people that we can't do it. So I am not letting you get into that hacker rank wala thing, skipping belong, because my second question, do you understand, the first question started and you said everything about it and under it, over it, below it, and I have my second question which is around belong, because there is different kind of things where people say you wear multiple hats, but what people don't see is people like you, they have been wearing multiple hats, or probably having multiple heads that they are wearing those hats on. So I need to ask you some more questions, and we are going to stop this here because there is attention deficiency. So I'm going to stop this here and I'm going to continue my next questions from belong to HackerRank with you. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, then keep watching.